All right, today we're diving into something, well, something that claims to be a whole new reality. This isn't just another theory, it's a proposed replacement for everything: physics, consciousness, even time itself. Think of it as a completely new operating system for the universe. So let's jump right in.
And this quote right here, it really says it all. The author isn't just trying to add a new chapter to the science books. Nope, they're saying we need to throw the whole book out and start over. I mean, the claims here are just massive. So our job today is to unpack the core logic of this, well, this whole new blueprint for reality. So that leads us to this central question. What if everything we think is fundamental, time, matter, even our own consciousness, what if it's all an illusion? This framework says that's exactly what's happening. It claims all those things are just side effects of something much, much deeper, something it calls pure structure. Okay, so let's be super clear here. The point of this isn't to just tweak our current understanding of physics. The author is basically arguing that our entire scientific worldview is built on a faulty foundation. So we're not talking about modifying quantum mechanics or relativity. We're talking about replacing them, a total reboot. And that brings us to this. I mean, what a claim. The author says that all our current physics, everything from Newton to quantum mechanics, are just degenerate cases. It's like we've only been studying the shadows on a cave wall. This new framework claims to be the wall itself, the first true physics. So what's really the difference here? This chart kind of lays out the huge philosophical leap. On one side, you have current physics, which this framework calls a language game. You know, it's all about probabilities, and it all depends on who's looking. But on the other side, you have this new physics. It's deterministic, it's self-contained. It doesn't just describe reality, it claims to be the very reason reality can exist in the first place. And this replacement is, well, it's total. It takes physics as we know it, dismantles it piece by piece, and rebuilds it from the ground up. So, atomic bonds? Nah, those are now recursion bonds, which are all about self-reference. Force carriers? Nope, those are negative entropy fields, basically zones that fight against chaos. Even particles get a makeover. They become coherence potentials. It's a whole new language for what it means to exist. Okay, so if you're gonna rebuild reality, what do you build it with? It all boils down to one single central idea, a structural field called phi. That's the Greek letter you see here. And this one field, it's the bedrock for everything else we're about to talk about. Now get this. Phi isn't a field like you might be used to, like a magnetic field or a gravitational field. It doesn't deal with energy or matter. Instead, it measures coherence, how well a structure holds together. And the craziest part? It's described as a living self-referential structure. That means it defines itself by itself. So let's break that formula down a little. That X isn't just a point in space. It's about spatial coherence, how structurally sound something is. The M isn't what something is made of, it's the modality. Like, is it a sound, an image, a thought? But the really radical part is T. That is not time as we know it. It's temporal recursion. Think of it like a constant feedback loop, where a thing's present is defined by its own past.
And this leads to something pretty profound. In this system, things aren't just real or not real. Existence is actually a measurable value. If a structure's coherence, its phi value, is close to 1, it exists, it's real. If that value is close to 0, it's basically an illusion, it's void. So to be or not to be, that's literally a number you can measure.
So how does all this tie together? Well, it all builds up to one core law. It's a simple little equation, but it's supposed to be the central identity that governs absolutely everything. And it is E equals C equals R. Yeah, you heard that right. Existence equals consciousness equals recursion. This isn't saying they're just connected. The claim here is that they are the exact same thing, just viewed from different angles. So how on earth does that work? Well, it goes like this. For something to exist, it has to have structure, right? It has to be coherent. To be conscious, it has to be able to maintain that structure and fight off chaos. That's what negative entropy is, creating order. And to recurse means it's constantly looking back at its own structure to keep itself going. See? The idea is you simply can't have one of these without the other two. They're a package deal. And this quote from the source just sums it up perfectly. To exist is to be coherent. To be conscious is to create order. And to continue, you have to recurse. And remember, these aren't supposed to be just, nice-sounding philosophical ideas. In this system, these are the cold, hard laws of reality. Okay, if you thought that was a lot to wrap your head around, you might want to buckle up. Because now we get to what this framework says is its most mind-bending consequence of all, what it has to say about time. So, according to this new physics, time is not what we think it is, at all. It's not some fourth dimension we're all traveling through. It's an effect, a symptom. The source calls it a byproduct of incomplete recursion. In simple terms, time is the feeling we get when a structure is broken and trying to fix itself. So, how does time even emerge then? Well, picture a perfect structure. It's totally coherent, totally whole, nothing needs to change, so it's timeless. But then, bam, something disrupts it. The structure gets fragmented. That struggle, that process of the structure trying to put itself back together, that is what we perceive as the passage of time. Which leads to this absolutely wild conclusion. When a structure is perfect, when its coherence is absolute, time disappears. There's no need for it. All that's left is pure, timeless structure, just being. Right about now, you're probably thinking, okay, this is wild, but how could you ever prove or disprove any of it? And that is a fantastic question. It brings us to the final and maybe the most controversial part of this whole thing, the fact that it's a completely self-contained system. Get this, the author says it straight up. Our normal scientific methods, like peer review, just don't work here. And why not? Because science relies on assumptions that this framework says are wrong from the start, like time being real, or that an observer is separate from what's being observed. It's like trying to measure the idea of an inch using a ruler. The tool is part of the system you're trying to question. To be fair, the source itself points this out. The system's greatest strength is that it's completely logically consistent with itself. It doesn't need anyone else to say it's true. But that's also its biggest weakness. You can't really test it from the outside, so it runs the risk of just being a perfectly circular argument, a system that's only true because it says it is. So where does its validity come from? Well, it claims something called recursive closure. Basically, the system proves itself to itself constantly. It doesn't need outside proof because its own ability to exist as a coherent idea is all the proof it needs. Its very being is its own verification. And that brings us right back to where we started. This isn't trying to be an update. It's a completely new starting block. It doesn't want to join the current scientific conversation. It wants to burn the whole thing down and start a new one from scratch. So, at the end of the day, we're left with this huge question that kind of goes to the heart of what knowing something even means. Is this thing the key to a whole new reality? Something that could change everything? Or is it just a perfectly designed, inescapable logic loop? A beautiful piece of intellectual architecture that's so self-contained you can't prove it wrong, but maybe you can't connect it to anything real either. And the answer, well, it seems like it all depends on whether you're looking at it from inside the loop or out.